The legend of El Dorado has captivated the imagination of explorers, historians, and adventurers for centuries. A city of gold, hidden deep in the jungles of South America, promised unimaginable wealth to anyone who could find it. This mythical place, said to be overflowing with gold and riches, became the ultimate prize for Spanish conquistadors and explorers in the 16th century. But was El Dorado real, or was it just a dream that led many to their doom? In this video we'll explore the fascinating story of Spain's search for El Dorado, the mythical city of gold, and how it shaped the course of history in the New World. 1. The origins of the El Dorado legend. The story of El Dorado begins with the indigenous peoples of South America. The legend is often tied to the Muisca civilization in present-day Colombia. According to Muisca tradition, their ruler, known as the Zipa or Zac, would cover himself in gold dust and then plunge into the sacred waters of Lake Guatavita as part of a ceremonial ritual. Over time, Spanish explorers misinterpreted this ritual as evidence of an entire city made of gold, leading to the creation of the El Dorado myth. By the 16th century, when Spanish conquistadors began their conquests in the Americas, rumors of a golden empire spread like wildfire. The Spanish court became obsessed with the idea of finding this fabled city, believing it could solve all of Spain's financial problems and make them the undisputed rulers of the world. 2. The Spanish conquistadors and their relentless search. Once Spain set its sights on the riches of the New World, its explorers began to scour the Americas in search of gold. Hernán Cortés had already conquered the mighty Aztec Empire, and Francisco Pizarro had defeated the Inca Empire, both of which offered vast quantities of gold and silver. But the promise of an even greater treasure, the mythical El Dorado, was too tantalizing to ignore. In the early 1500s, the Spanish sent several expeditions into the interior of South America, hoping to find the fabled city. One of the first to embark on such a mission was Sebastián de Belalcázar, who ventured into the mountains of present-day Colombia, while other explorers like Gonzalo Jiménez de Quesada and Nicolaus Federman also led expeditions in search of El Dorado. These men did not find a city of gold, but instead faced brutal terrain, hostile indigenous tribes, and a deadly combination of disease, starvation, and violence. Despite their hardships, the quest for gold drove them forward, each believing they were on the brink of a major discovery. 3. The role of indigenous peoples in the search for El Dorado. The Spanish explorers relied heavily on the knowledge and assistance of indigenous peoples, who were familiar with the land and its hidden treasures. Some tribes willingly guided the Spanish through the jungles, while others resisted, recognizing the threat posed by the foreign invaders. The relationships between the Spanish and indigenous people were complex and often violent, with many native groups forced into labor and submission. One of the most famous interactions was with the Muisca people, who were believed to be the origin of the El Dorado myth. Spanish conquistadors, like Quesada, tried to extract information from the Muisca leaders, believing they held the secret to El Dorado's location. However, the Muisca never revealed any such treasure, and their resistance ultimately led to their subjugation by the Spanish. While the myth persisted, it was clear that the native populations did not possess the vast hoards of gold that the Spanish had imagined. Yet, the search for gold continued, with several other expeditions being launched to explore deeper into the interior of South America. 4. The legendary expeditions and their failures. The most infamous expedition in the search for El Dorado was led by the Spanish explorer Francisco Orellana in 1541. Orellana was part of an expedition led by Gonzalo Pizarro to explore the Amazon River. Initially, the mission was focused on finding the city of gold, but the journey quickly turned disastrous. The expedition faced treacherous conditions, including heavy rains, malaria, and a lack of food and resources. As the explorers ventured further into the heart of the Amazon rainforest, the group began to fracture. In a desperate bid for survival, Orellana split from Pizarro's group and set off down the Amazon River with a small force, hoping to find a route to the Atlantic Ocean. Though Orellana did not discover El Dorado, his journey is significant for being the first European expedition to navigate the entire length of the Amazon River. His journey was filled with hardship, including encounters with hostile tribes and the loss of many men to disease, but it opened the door for future exploration of the vast Amazon region. Still, the elusive El Dorado remained a fantasy. 5. The decline of the El Dorado myth. Despite many failed attempts to locate El Dorado, the legend of the Golden City continued to captivate explorers and adventurers. Over time, however, the myth began to fade. As Spanish colonial powers solidified their control over the Americas, it became clear that the vast amounts of gold they sought were not to be found in a single city, but rather in the resource-rich mines of the Americas, especially in places like Potosi, Bolivia. Furthermore, as European knowledge of the Americas grew, it became apparent that El Dorado was likely a fantasy rather than a reality. By the late 1600s, the search for the Golden City had largely faded, though it would remain an enduring symbol of the greed and ambition that characterized the age of exploration. 6. The legacy of the El Dorado legend. Though El Dorado itself may have never existed, its legacy endures in the history of Spanish exploration. The myth of the Golden City helped fuel centuries of exploration, conquest, and exploitation of the Americas. It also contributed to the immense wealth and power of Spain, which extracted gold and silver from the Americas, particularly from the mines in Mexico and Peru. Today, the search for El Dorado serves as a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the destructive consequences of colonialism. The myth of El Dorado was not just a search for wealth, but also a reflection of European imperialism and the desire to dominate the New World. 7. Conclusion: the end of the Golden Dream. The myth of El Dorado, once thought to be the key to endless riches, ultimately faded as explorers recognized that there was no magical city of gold waiting to be discovered. The true legacy of El Dorado lies not in the treasures that were never found, but in the impact it had on the history of exploration and the European conquest of the Americas. In the end, the story of El Dorado teaches us about the destructive power of myths, the lure of wealth, and the consequences of seeking riches at any cost. While the Golden City may not have existed, the quest for it shaped the course of history and left a lasting mark on the Americas and Europe alike. In our next video, we'll dive deeper into the realities of the Spanish conquest and how it forever changed the landscape of the New World. Stay tuned.